Welcome back to another episode of Reinforce the Horse.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going today?
Oh, quite fantastic. It's been a while since we've
Recorded.
been out here recording, huh?
Yeah,
A lot has changed.
A lot has changed since then.
What were you thinking about talking about today? It's rough, isn't it? To try to narrow down.
There's a lot that we could talk about. Well, let's start with we've done a lot for the horses. You've done a lot for the horses these past few months. I guess for starters, they now have a big turnout paddock. How big is it approximately?
About an acre.
And they're in here full time with each other, and they've changed a lot. Do you want to talk about your observations with them since you've been around them a lot?
Yeah, so over the past month, specifically, well, I guess we only finished up the pen here like a couple weeks ago now. And I had a hunch that they would be, happy about it, but I didn't really expect everything that's happened as a result of, and it's not just giving them more room to roam around in, but it was like that was the icing on the cake. And so when this turnout area was finished, the next morning they both walked up to me and said thank you. And that was a pretty fascinating experience for them to just show their contentment. And so then I kind of brushed that off. I was like, oh, maybe I'm just imagining that or whatever. But in the days to follow, our Mustang Willow not only laid down with me in her area, but also she laid her head in my lap. And so I've had a couple of pretty amazing experiences where they're just really showing me their true self and how calm and really just how content and happy they are.
That's amazing. Yeah, this is the first time I've been out here with them for a while, and we just did a nice meditation, and by the time just shortly after we came out of the meditation, both horses were on the ground sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And then not even shortly after that, Willow walks up to us and is just like, hey, how's it going? I'm gonna hang out with you guys now. So now they're both up. Willow's grazing,
Mm-hmm.
not very far away from us. Cody, well, I can't see Cody at the moment, but he's,
Willow's maybe 40 feet away,
yeah.
And Cody's closer to probably about 100 feet away.
They've got this distance, just, being able to be out with them, and I feel them.
Yeah.
And I can't, for those of you that, if you have horses or have the pleasure of hanging out with horses, I'm curious to hear your experiences or your thoughts on feeling the horses, their energy, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
without having to be, touching them. I can't even explain it. I've known, I've listened to a few people on other podcasts and such who have mentioned, talked about being able to feel them and explained it miraculously well to where I understand and I can empathize with it. But it's there's something about being in their space and being able to feel that in my body, in my mind, in my heart. It's incredible.
Yeah. And on that note, maybe you'd like to cue us in on a little bit of what's been going on in your world the past month or so?
Yeah, so there's been a lot going on. I recently, 3 months ago, made a decision to stay over at my mom's. For those of you who don't know, my parents are divorced. My dad lives here. My mom lives about an hour and a half away from here. And anyways, I was staying over at her place for a while, and in that whole time of being over there, I've gone through a lot. Like, there's been a lot in my personal life. Is just like, uh, with lack of better terms to express it, I'm figuring myself out, and I I'm able to sit with that and be calm, and yeah, I've been spending a lot of time with myself and meditating and being silent, uh and just kind of asking what feels right at the moment. And so just yesterday, in fact, uh I was hanging out with my dad and the rest of this family, and it felt right to come back. It felt right to be over here, and
And so,
yeah,
can we go a little deeper on that?
yeah.
Because, of course, like, you headed off to your mom's house for Thanksgiving, which was awesome, and you did your first like
Solo drive.
solo drive that far, and
Yeah.
you made it with no problems, and then whatever you were dealing with internally caused you to make some what I, as your dad, kind of think of as like teenage decisions,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And a lot of
and
those decisions were certainly like irrational. Like,
right,
thinking back to it now, like, that didn't need to happen for this to happen.
right.
So
We kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday, like,
yeah,
for us to get to this kind of cohesive, connected point in the present, we didn't necessarily have to go through the negativity to get there,
yeah,
but
exactly.
that's the choice that we both have responsibility for, and we've discussed that in pretty strong detail.
Yeah,
And but we've had a number of really profound, sort of what people would consider woo-woo experiences over the past month or so.
just between you and I.
Yeah, that can't be explained away in any format. And like, so the most recent was just like days ago, where I'm out here where I'm sitting right now, and I come out of a pretty deep meditation, just kind of that blissful feeling, and I start journaling, and I journal about a verse in the Christian Bible, in First Corinthians. I think it's like chapter 13 somewhere, and it's the definition of love is essentially, love is patient, love is kind. A lot of people, even non-Christian or whatever, probably have heard that. And so that verse comes to mind, and I kind of just think on that. And while I come from I come from a pretty strong Christian belief system, I can't say that I'm the typical practicing Christian at this point in my life, but there's plenty of really good stuff within that text and how it applies to life. Especially that verse has always been like near and dear to my heart. And so I'm journaling this, and like, moments after I get done with the page, I get a phone call, and my ringer's on silent and everything, and like, I just happen to be looking at my phone, and it's Alyssa calling. Now, Alyssa and I haven't really been on the best of terms the past couple months or so, but we've been working through it, like we've alluded to.
Yeah.
And so she calls me, and she starts with this energy, like rattling off like where she just was about, like, her thinking in this verse, and this, she remembers back like this Bible that she had as a child in this verse. And I was like,
Oh my
hold on a
god.
second, hold on, let me cut you off right there. Is it the love is patient, love is kind verse? And he's like, holy crap, yeah, how did you know? And so then I'm like, all right, well, you got to see this journal entry that I just made. So I take a picture of it and I send it off to her, the whole page, and she reads it. And then what, Alyssa?
Oh my god, that's like, dude. Well, I'm gonna start with the beginning of my story, of my part on that. So I had been, let's see, I had just gotten out of a school live lesson, and I just like I didn't want to like start on my lessons yet, and I just really wanted to write, just to journal, and that's been something I've been journaling for years now. Just recently, on a daily basis, once if not twice a day. Anyways, I opened up this brand new journal of mine, and I just start writing, and I'm kind of writing about a law, an idea I had weeks prior that I hadn't quite figured out yet, hadn't really started with that idea in my life. And then I started, like, I wrote down a sentence about me remembering. Like, I just had this huge, like, remembering moment of me being a child. I mean, like 7, 8, maybe. Like I was just old enough to read, and I had gotten this Bible from my parents, and I used to sit and read this Christian Bible. I loved it. And I would just, pick and choose certain verses to read. Anyways, I came across this love verse. Pretty sure it's 1 Corinthians 13, like
4 through 8 or
4,
something
yeah,
like that.
something
Yeah.
like that. Anyways, I found it, and I just like started reading it, and I remember like that just hitting me and like really resonating with me at the time, and I don't really know why. Like I
Like
didn't
in
know
when you first read it
when I
when you were
first,
younger?
yes,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I like I remember like it spoke to me, and it felt real, and it felt different. And so I just felt propelled to go and grab a piece of paper, and I remember writing on this piece of paper in bold letters. And this is like a small like notepad, piece of paper, and it says in bold letters love. And then I wrote a little note to myself, and I can't remember what the note was at this time, but I I'm thinking back to that moment while I'm journaling, and I just feel this intense urge to call dad. Just call him and tell him what's going on. So I call him, and he tells me all this, and we have that conversation that he just talked about, and well, we hang up the phone, and I just start bawling my eyes out. Like, had anybody been there at the time, my mom was working, my brother's at school, all that fun stuff. I'm the only one home. Had anyone been there, they would have thought something was seriously wrong with me. I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy. I was just like, had a huge epiphany moment with
Mm.
that verse, and I read it over and over, and I quoted it in my journal, and I don't know, like it hit me like in some sort of weird, this is a part of me.
Yeah, and gosh, there's so much to like unpack there
Ah,
because
dear.
um as we mentioned before on our show here, we really like to listen to Warwick Schiller's Journey On podcast. And uh, just days before this, or somewhere in the mix of this time, I had randomly just picked one of the episodes that I hadn't listened to on Journey On, and it was with Jenna
Jenna Darko.
Darko. And so it's really profound, like the way the stuff sort of comes up as we're opening or and open to it in our own uh lives. And so listening to Jenna talk to Warwick and their over 2 hour conversation on that particular episode of this podcast, it was just, I don't know, like I told you yesterday, like I felt like Jenna was almost like giving an invitation to reach out. Like it was kind of subliminal, almost like, hey, if you kind of feel where I'm coming from, like just reach out and say hi, sort of thing. And I was just compelled to do that, and I shot her an email uh because I said I was like captivated by your talk with Warwick Schiller, um and just kind of like empathize with that conversation that they had. And I said, I wouldn't have necessarily reached out, but felt compelled after reading on your website. And I quote, I am here for the love of truth and the truth of love. And that's what Jenna Darko says on her website as to like her epiphany moment. Like when
Yeah.
she asks, like, what's my purpose? Who am I? And so, uh, I went on to say, I've been practicing meditation consistently now for about 7 years. And just this past year, I felt like I graduated, for lack of better terms. And so I also completed a course by Sadhguru, his inner engineering course, which was pretty profound and enlightening to me. And on the 10th of January, I journaled the question, like, who am I? Who are we? And after that, after writing that, I went into a meditation, and following the meditation, this came to mind, and I said, I am love. The breath is like the breeze of nature, slowly filling my lungs. I exhale in my existence, in my experience, to simply be who I am. And so I just had to share that with Jenna after like listening to their uh, discussion, and then also after like pulling up her website, because just to kind of see like I'm gonna kind of be vulnerable and send an email off to somebody I don't know. Maybe I should like see if that's a good idea. And her quote just like popped right in my mind. So like the the common thread and theme of this whole thing is that word love.
We're love. It's
And safe to say that, in as I told you after that and recently, like I've struggled with so much like anxiety and depression in my life simply because I never um, really understood love. Uh, and I actually hated myself internally. And that's not to say that I don't feel like I ever had happy moments or I never experienced happiness. And I can't say I'd never experienced love, but it's more so from like the internal, like there was always like apprehension around it, or a feeling of dis-ease, or just feeling off about this concept of love, and that offness would, and all those negative feelings would kind of drive me into these anxious and depressive cycles. And over the past few weeks, especially, it's like the clouds of anxiety and depression have been lifted, and I'm just reminded of love, and like that at the core of who we are as human beings, and really, in my belief, is entire creation that we get to perceive. The basis of it is love. And
yeah,
it's like, well, take a deep breath on that one.
yeah. It's one thing. That really resonates with me, and I can't really explain like why, other than it just feels right. Uh, it just yeah, it feels right and it feels accurate and it feels yeah, like I don't know, the conversation we had uh a couple weeks ago, that really deep conversation we had, like that, like you inspired me to, I guess with lack of better terms, find myself.
Hmm.
And I took a lot of what you said to heart, and uh from like I didn't gather any sort of like suggestions from you. It was it was more of like a, this is what I'm going through. Uh and it, yeah, it was just, your words were really inspiring to me. So I took that, and I've been meditating on a daily basis for like a month now, I think. And
And
uh
before that, like, what was your meditation practice like?
it was occasional. I mean, I'd say on average once every couple weeks or so. But not crazy, like every day all the time. But since like I don't know, just recently it's almost addicting.
Right.
It's like it's just and then by the time, the instructor or whatever, if I'm doing it by myself, it's like, do I have to come out of it now? Do I really like do I have to? Because it's like, I don't know, there's a sense of calm and peace, and every time I meditate, I feel like I get to know myself more.
Hmm.
Like, hi, I'm Alyssa, how's it going? And it just like I don't like I get to kind of connect with myself. It's kind of cool. Um,
Yeah, I've been blown away, like how disconnected our American Western culture is to some of these ideas. And like, I don't know, I grew up in the 90s in like the Christian church, and I just remember there being such like a negative taste in my mouth about meditation, or even even though like the Christian Bible says like meditate on the word daily and stuff like that. It never occurred to me that, and I love how Sod Gruber breaks it down. He calls the course that he has is called inner engineering. And so it's not like it's not set up in a way that it's like, hey, come and like sit on a yoga mat and like levitate because you're meditating and getting all mystical and stuff like that. It's more, he likens it to just having a technology. Uh, he uses the analogy of like we have these smartphones that um, we really are only using them at a small portion of their capacity for most people. I mean, they can do a lot more than what we usually put them to the test to do. And so his analogy is that, you know, similarly our body and our mind is the same way. And like we don't get instruction manuals per se about how to operate the mind and body, especially together. And so his ideas, like in this, for his belief and practices, stems from the yogic sciences. And I'm probably like other Westerners who just believe yoga is about, you know, doing some odd postures with the body and stretches and whatever, and strengthening the physical body. That's all I thought yoga was. I didn't realize yoga had such long like ties in history. I mean, thousands of years. And the belief systems go far deeper than just and in fact the the physical body practice of yoga to me is just kind of icing on the top, so to speak, as to what the other practices are. So um and of course, like, there's yoga, and then I think out of that Buddhism kind of uh derived from that, and then maybe Hinduism derived from that. I might have gotten that uh that order wrong, but they're all related in some way. But the idea that it's just a technology that you apply. And so it's refreshing to know that regardless of your belief system or religion, that you could apply a technology to better understand our existence. And it's really cool to me to have gone through that, because I had a lot of anxiety as what I would consider a Christian person, being like, well, this is like not Christian, you know. But then it occurred to me that, well, pretty much most of my life doesn't flow that specific direction all the time anyway. But it illuminated so much, and that verse in First Corinthians just like came to mind, like it was like served on a silver platter to me, like, this is what you need to know and understand right now. And at the core of it is love. And so as you and I have been struggling, like, in our own relationship with each other, uh you know we had a choice. We had multiple choices to make, and we arguably, I mean, we could have chosen to hate each other right now
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and we both chose otherwise. And by being open to that, it's opened up a series of events and awareness for me, and it sounds like for you, that has been quite profound.
Yeah, seriously. And I've been like doing a lot of loving and forgiving myself these past, I don't know, few weeks or so. uh you said something to me on the phone a couple times, and it was went something like, you can't love and forgive others if you don't love and forgive yourself.
Mm.
And that really speaks to me, and it makes sense to me. Can't really explain why it makes sense to me, but it just does.
And I also said, like, I'm just starting to begin to
Yeah, there's
understand that
that.
at my age of 41 years old, and I'm just barely starting to understand that concept.
uh, yeah. And it's like magic. And to be able to, and I told you last night, to be able to uh do something. And I mean, I've been, I'll go past, a mirror or whatever, and just like gently look myself in the mirror. And sometimes it's out loud, sometimes it's mentally, but like recently I've just like, I take a moment, I love you, Alyssa.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
that's an amazing feeling to like. And there's something about like being able to like see yourself. And some people, it's especially, I feel like at my age, people are very self-conscious about what they look like. They don't like to look at themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one, like, I don't like listening to myself speak over the phone or whatever, or like on recording. I just don't like the way my voice sounds. But I'm working on, like shifting that. And well, that's part of me. Well, I mean, depending on what you get into, I mean, I am not the body, I'm not even the mind. So there's also that belief system sort of, I don't know. So there's just all of this, different, I guess different belief systems, but at the same time, the same belief system. And it's just like, it's hit me, and it's hit me in a way that I need to spend more time figuring out who I am and loving myself, because I want to love and forgive others
Right.
for who they are. And I love history. History has always been one of my favorite subjects, but I go back to the Holocaust, which is, it's a very detrimental time in history, very sad, very heartbreaking to read stories and hear about it. But there was one Holocaust survivor that I came across a little while ago, and she was part of the twin experiments, and she lost her twin sister as a result of the twin experiments. Anyways, she talks about.
Can you tell more about that? I'm
Oh,
unfamiliar with
oh
that.
yeah, okay. So Ava, I don't know what her last name is right now, but I'll find it. Um I'm pretty sure she's still alive today. Anyway, she was, I think she said her and her sister were 10 years old when they were brought to Auschwitz, and they lost their mother, and they were taken to a separate part of the camp where Joseph Mengele, he's known as the Angel of Death, he would experiment on these twins. And I mean, he tortured them in ways that no human should ever have to go through. And she talks about this in many videos she's got. I mean, she's been on interviews. She's pretty famous in this way, and she's a huge, like, I look up to her a lot for so many things. But to hear her story, um, and the way her and her sister were treated, and then they both survived the Holocaust, but they never saw their parents again. I mean, she talks about the last moment that she saw her mother, and the hurt that she went through, and all this other stuff, and the pain. And then her sister, always wanting to be a mother, ended up dying during childbirth, I believe, because because her body, with everything that she was injected with, her body couldn't give birth safely to a child. And so her twin sister died because of because of what happened to them, during the Holocaust. And she talks about going through this huge, realization. At first, regret and anger, and she wanted to get revenge on this angel of death, this demon of a person, if you will. And she, after years of, kind of figuring it out, figuring herself out, she had it in herself she wrote this long letter to this person, and she said that she had it in herself to forgive him. And she talks about it like she wrote this, and she didn't talk very good English at the time, so she went to her English professor to edit this letter for her. And she said that she sat in her house and imagined this person like in the house with her, standing there listening to her talk. And she said there were, like, I said a number of bad words to this person, and told him how I really feel. And then at the end I said, I forgive you. And listening to her like say this was like I felt that. And I can't even explain how or why I felt that, but it like resonated with me in ways I can't even explain. And then she goes on to say that she got a lot of hate from, other, Holocaust survivors because, well, how could I ever forgive somebody that evil? But, she did. And she, as a result of that, said that, like, her life was dramatically changed after that. Like, she was a better person.
That's fascinating. I've heard and, like, have begun to understand at this point in my life that forgiveness is something that happens internal, and it's remarkable to have that feeling take place. And I've had a number of those just recently, like in my own life, but it's mostly internal. Being, I don't even have to have conversation with the other person or people, and it's just a cleansing process in my own internal experience. And the result of that, it shifts the energy and dynamic for like everybody I come in contact with.
And
it's a pretty interesting and remarkable thing. So to have somebody come from that much trauma, like, I mean, I don't think there's much, if anything, that can like match the Holocaust, as far as like experiencing trauma in one's life. And so to have somebody have that heart-centered focus on forgiveness, and then be able to speak about it, and then it has an effect on 17-year-old Alyssa, who's working through her own human experience.
And that's, yeah. And I don't know, like I've always kind of been drawn to that era of history, and I don't really know why. Like, it fascinates me. It makes me cry. It's because it's real, and it's depressing. It's a common word that I use for it, but I could not stop listening to this person talk. Like, I would, like, I mean, for hours upon hours in a day, I would, find YouTube videos of her talking about her life, and it's pretty, like, it's the same story. And I would go on and listen, like, her interviews with people, and I was like, you inspire me. This is incredible. And you can just feel the energy, like, feel her energy. And for some, I have heard, other thoughts where people are like, well, I would never have it in myself to do that kind of thing, or they look down on her for what she's done, and what she's done, meaning forgiving this.
The forgiveness,
yeah. But I don't know. It's inspiring to me, and that, along with many conversations that you and I have had, particularly, like, it inspires me to forgive myself in so many ways.
Right.
Because, I don't want to live in a place of sadness and despair and, oh, that happened, how could I change it? Because the reality is, I can't change it. I think moving forward is more important, and learning from those so-called mistakes.
Right. And that's so wise, and like, gosh, I wish I mean, I'm hearing you as my daughter like break that down, and gosh, I wish I had some semblance of that when I was your age. And I thought I did, but I didn't. And um you know, perhaps a lot of that not having that has caused, a certain amount of pain in your life, you know. And so it's not regret, but it's just acknowledgement and understanding, and coming to that realization and awareness and consciousness, if you will, about like our responsibility and say like everything. And I know that that sounds like a big statement, but like, um I don't know. I feel like we all have collective responsibility for everything.
And I
Uh
second that, because I
and that
mean,
doesn't mean like you're responsible and you're guilty as charged and you need to serve time or something for an action or whatever. It's more just like we're all involved in this like thing we call life.
yeah, it's like
And
we're all connected in some way, shape, or form.
yeah, it's sometimes hard to understand and realize, or it's always hard and understand that when there's 8 billion people on the planet. But the more I personally explore these types of ideas that we've thrown around the past half hour, and even more so, I mean, it just starts to make more sense in those moments, like getting that phone call from you. It's like, and by the like, we weren't talking like every day, or
Yeah.
like there wasn't a lot of like communication
No.
between Alyssa and me for the past couple months, really. And so to get a phone call from her out of the blue was rare at best right now. And a lot of me kind of just chalk that up as to, Alyssa's 17. And for those of you who are over 17, kind of understand that point. And but also, uh you know yeah, it's a pretty amazing process of discovery, and I'm glad to be able to share this journey with you. And which brings me to like a thought, like, it's been a while since we put out a episode on the podcast here. And
Uh-huh.
quite honestly, I don't really know, like, I just enjoy doing this. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of cathartic to sit down and have a discussion with you, and then it's a little bit more so to share that with the world, because
Yeah.
um I kind of feel like if there's even just like one person that can listen, and I think on average we have maybe like 40 downloads
Okay.
on these sessions, so
That's pretty cool.
it's not like we're hitting millions of,
Oh.
downloads or anything. And I guess like initially starting the podcast, it was like, oh, we could, reach millions of people, and like, and I've come to find, just for me, like, kind of had the wrong intentions initially, and so I'm kind of resetting that. And this is kind of like a journal entry
Uh-huh.
to me, but it's also like, if I can share that and like be vulnerable literally to the world,
Yeah.
who's ever willing to listen, then maybe it might help somebody kind of figure their journey out a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the cool thing about being able to, do this and share this with others, is that, I mean, I don't know, I've always had a desire to help people. I feel like it's, it's the same for me. If I can help someone in, some way, whether it's even as simple as putting a smile on their face, you know,
Yeah.
that's for me, that's a win.
And so, in the essence of reinforce the horse, it's like lately I feel like we've reinforced our horses like significantly, and their reciprocation of that is amazing. Uh, so we live on 10 acres. We've got a pretty decent, I think 10 acres is a pretty decent sized plot of land.
Oh yeah.
And especially, coming from the quote city, where, our entire property was like less than an acre. So the area that we're sitting in right now is about an acre uh, dimension, and it's like these horses felt reinforced from that, and so they're reciprocating, and their ability to shine love to us is amazing. And then it's like this nice like partnership now, and it has been leading. So we've been in this since like 2018 with the horses, and just not a long time. And it's like, man, so now we exist with these horses in ways that when we were coming into it in 2018, like I think back to like Mocha's trainer, like Katie, like she'd be like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like and other people like just like we ride our horses bareback.
Yep.
And bridleless. We don't use any tack. In fact, the few weeks that you were gone initially, like that first week, um, you know, like Willa wasn't super connected to me, or not go get the halter, and she'll put it on and whatever, but and then I'm like, I felt myself like just by virtue of the halter, she's feeling like I'm trying to force her to do something, so she just like, all right, I'm just gonna stand here.
Yeah.
And so to a lot of people, they'd be like, well, that horse isn't trained and isn't quote halter broke,
or being disrespectful.
Yeah, or she's being disrespectful to you, so move her feet or whatever. And instead of doing that, I did the exact opposite. I just took the halter off.
Nice.
And walked away from her.
Nice.
And then maybe get like 20, 25 paces away and turn around and just kind of clasp my hands in my front and pick a spot and just like get present. And this would be like the James French trust technique that he's coined, and really it's just I'm starting to think of it more of like as an active meditation process. And then lo and behold, she like walk up to me. And so then I just start repeating that process. And we've done it in the past, but there was something really profound about me doing that without you here.
Yeah.
To where, and then she was like, oh, I get it. And so then that turned out, and that's before we got this enclosure area done. And so she could literally go anywhere off of our property and whatnot. And so the whole month before we got this done, she didn't run off like anywhere. She like stayed really pretty close.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so then I started getting really used to like where her like most comfortable spots on the property are and stuff like that. And I would just join her and like not ask her to do anything, not ride, not this, not that, not training, and just like hang out and be with her. And then Cody would join us, and like so I'm just hanging out, watching the horses graze and grazing with them and pointing out cool grass to them and stuff like that. And they're the most calm like animals that I've been around, honestly.
They
like
really are. Like they're in their eye, like you go up to them and they're like, it's like they're in a constant state of I'm gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
I've never ever in my life seen, and I've been around some horses, not like too many horses, but I've been around some horses, and I've like never even heard of horses being that calm.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. I'm like watching them and I'm like, dude, you guys are like in heaven on earth. It's insane. And they're just like, I mean, now we have peace of mind because there's a fence and we're sure that they're not going to run off and whatever, but they like, you can clearly tell they like being together. They're always like telepathically communicating with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just this morning Willow was in one of her sheds eating her hay net, and Cody comes around and like I saw it, like, hey, can I join you? Willow was like, no, go do something else. And fair enough, he went on the opposite side and started, grazing on his hay net, and like respectfully respected Willow's no. And they're just like, yeah, it's incredible. And you walk up to them and they nicker at you, and
Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't like I don't like to just like, touch them. Like I like to ask, or with Willow usually I'll just like hold my 2 or 3
Mm-hmm.
fingers out and like
Mm-hmm.
wait for her. Like I won't touch her unless she touches me first.
Right.
Which is kind of magical because sometimes she'll come over and like touch me, and then I'll be like, and then she'll like leave her nose, and then I'll like pet her and be like, "You're so cute."
Yeah.
Cody usually just sticks his face in my face, and I just kiss him and pet him. And Cody, you're such a fuzzy, cute little like
It's
teddy
funny
bear.
how I've really gotten to the point of doing that as well. Like, and when we first started working with horses, I would just like walk up to him like, "Let me pet you," and like I just pet them and breach their space.
Yeah.
You know, I don't do that anymore.
I mean, yeah,
Even riding, I don't have to ride for like work or whatever. And
yeah,
we've talked about that
yeah.
to some degree, but I I literally ask if I can ride, and they say yes or no.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And right now it's more no than yes, and I'm okay with that.
yeah.
But when we do ride, like, especially like I haven't ridden Mocha or Willow
Willow.
yet. Uh, Starting to.
Okay.
But with Cody, when he does say yes, he's like all in.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a really cool feeling.
It really like, and to be able to connect, especially bareback and bridleless. Largely, I mean, we have been using treats, but I mean, when like it's not all about the treats, and we've
Right.
talked about this
Yeah.
too. I mean, if you have treats and they want you to get on, they'll tell you yes. Otherwise, they'll say no.
Yeah.
And they know we know it's not all about the snacks.
Yeah.
However, I do believe that we could totally accomplish that and everything else we've accomplished with them without treats.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's totally at this point the treats are just kind of like snack, I know you enjoy this, and
Mm-hmm.
it does give them some motivation to
Mm-hmm.
move because
And I think it's really good, and I think Mustang Maddie touches on this, and correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert on her philosophies, but um, I I think when it comes to the snacks for them, it's just kind of icing on the cake.
yeah,
It's like not 100% necessity,
yeah, and
but if it's there, they're gonna and we manage that, like, rarely do they ever like kind of resource guard, as you
yeah,
call it, right? uh and then if they do, it's just kind of a redirection. And so the positive reinforcement using uh treat and clicker is to me, it's like, if I'm really wanting to engage and kind of teach them something new or polish something that they already know,
uh-huh,
that's where I'm going back to, like, okay, the positive reinforcement with treats really gives a structure for that.
uh-huh.
But largely just being with them, what I'm finding is it's energy management.
Yeah, yeah,
And like that, like you brought up me telling you, hey, like, you can't love and forgive somebody else if you don't love and forgive yourself.
yeah,
Well, I had an epiphany just because, like recently, because of, like, I told you on the phone, like, I'm barely peeling the thin layer of the onion back just on that portion, like, just to begin to understand that. And so, but as I have, I've learned more about loving and forgiving myself, then wow, the horse is like, it's like we open up this new pathway of communication, and they reciprocate all the time. Like,
yeah. And
it's
I
really
mean,
cool.
so many guests on Work Schiller's Journey On podcast talk so much about that, and the horses being like a catalyst to that,
Mm-hmm.
and like almost a portal to
Right.
that, like that space and
Yep.
that happiness and joy and love, if you will. And it's just so, I mean, I guess suggestions here if y'all are looking for more podcast ideas. I've been in love with the Journey On podcast. I know you've listened to like
Oh
all of the
yeah.
episodes.
I binge listened to that
Uh,
when I first heard about it, and I heard about uh, that show, it it was so one night I had this like really deep moment with Cody where like we both wound up laying on the ground and we cried. I heard a horse cry. Like he cried and he released and I released a lot of like past trauma and issues, and like I've never been the same since that. And so waking up in the morning, I remember posting on Mustang Maddie's like internal group, the HCA herd, on Facebook, and I said like, uh, basically I I laid down with my horse last night, bawling my eyes out. Uh, does anybody know of anybody who can help me make sense of that? And someone replied back with a link to uh, Warwick Schiller's Journey On podcast and says something like he talks a lot about this stuff on his show.
Yeah.
And so I was like, once I started listening to it, I just couldn't stop. And then, yeah, it's pretty amazing what has transpired since then.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, that's like, you start listening to one episode, and I get mad when somebody calls me or texts me or whatever, and I'm like in the middle of an episode, because dude, or like when somebody walks in and is like, hey, I need your help for this. No, you don't. I'm listening to Journey On right now. Leave me alone.
That's funny.
And it's like, for no other reason than like, dude, this conversation, wow, and then the conversation just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
And it like, it keeps answering questions that I didn't even know I had. And it's like,
so
dude.
clearly we're inspired by that podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
and Warwick, I mean, I love to read, and Warwick Schiller, like, they're always talking about books, and so I'm like, man, I need to read that one, and that one, like, my list of books to read is like through the roof right now.
That's great. Yeah, same. I'm actually reading one of his guest books. Her first name's Linda, and last name starts with a K. I can't remember the pronunciation of it right offhand. But her book is called the Tao of Equus. Tao is Tao, of Equus, and so it basically like talks about her journey as a woman and how she was able to basically heal and work through life issues with horses and where that, and so it just resonates with me, and it actually inspired me to start writing my own book finally. So I've got that started, and
that's amazing.
Books take a long time to write, but we have so much that we've already talked about here on the show, and so much more that I'm just trying to kind of encapsulate into that, and it seems like Alyssa and I will be kind of co-authoring that.
Yeah, reading what he's got written so far is, I mean, dude, it's going to be a really cool book.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
I'm really, really kind of excited to be a part.
So as we sort of wrap this session up, yeah, I don't know where this is going. I'm open to wherever. I mean, like yesterday I jumped from an airplane at 13,000 feet. And that was kind of like a spur of the moment thing to do, but it also is kind of deep seated. There's a lot of symbolism in that, and kind of this whole renewing rather than rebirth, I guess, is just like a renewing experience of my mind, body, and soul. And that was just kind of like the pinnacle point of it, to just kind of symbolize that. And by the way, it was like the funnest like activity I've ever done in my life. It was amazing.
That's incredible.
And yeah, so I don't know where this podcast is going, or I would love for it to grow and help as many people and horses as possible. This session we talked a lot about us, but as we move along, like I sense that we'll definitely be bringing in the horses in and really unpacking their. What's that?
Hopefully, eventually, some guests. Too.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's a good point. I mean, I would love to have guests on the show. And so if you're interested in being on the show, just shoot us an email at podcast@reinforcethehorse.com and we will connect and yeah.
Yeah. As always, thanks so much for listening to us chit chat.
For sure.
We really do appreciate you listening. The horses are, currently in our space and enjoying it as well. So, we're all here. We all appreciate it. And on that note, have a great rest of your guys' day.
Take care, everybody. See you next time.